Well, tonight we're going to read The Little House. Here we go. The little house was very happy as she sat on the hill and watched the countryside around her. She watched the sun rise in the morning and she watched the sun set in the evening. In the night, she watched the moon grow from a thin new moon to a full moon, and then back again to a thin old moon. And when there was no moon, she watched the stars way off in the distance, and she could see the lights of the city far away. The little house watched the countryside slowly change with the seasons. In the spring, she waited for the first robin. She watched the buds on the trees swell and the apple trees burst into blossom. She watched the children playing in the brook. In the long summer days, she sat in the sun and watched the trees cover themselves with leaves and the white daisies cover the hill. She watched the apples turn red and ripen, and she watched the children swimming in the pool. Look, there's the horse and cart. There's the children swimming in the pool right there. And the horses. Oh, it looks lovely. In the fall, she watched the first frost turn the leaves to bright yellow and orange and red. She watched the harvest gathered and the apples picked, and she watched the children going back to school. There's the children going back to school. And all the leaves are orange, just like they are right now. In the winter, she watched the children coasting and skating. Year followed year, the apple trees grew old and new ones were planted. One day the little house was surprised to see a horseless carriage coming down the road. You know what that was? That was a car. And then came some trucks and tar and sand and a steamroller, and they made the road all smooth. Now the little house watched the trucks and cars going back and forth to the city. Gasoline stations, roadside stands, and small houses followed the new road. Everyone and everything moved much faster now. More roads were made, and more houses and bigger houses and apartment houses and tenement houses and schools and garage, and everybody crowded out around the little house. Nobody wanted to live in her anymore because she was all crowded. And it wasn't quiet and peaceful at night anymore because all the street lights were on. Oh, she missed the fields of daisies. Pretty soon there were trolley cars going back and forth in front of the little house. See, there they go. There's the little house, all surrounded by all those big buildings. And then there was a train that went back and forth, as well as the trolley cars. And pretty soon there was an underground subway going back and forth, just like the tube in the London book. And no one noticed the little house anymore. And pretty soon they tore down the apartment houses all around the little house and started building up really, really tall buildings. And now the little house only saw the sun at noon and didn't see the moon or stars at night at all because she was surrounded by these buildings. And the little house was very sad and lonely. Her windows were broken and she looked pretty shabby. Then one fine morning in spring along came the great-great-granddaughter of the man who had built the little house. And she said, "That looks like the little house that my grandmother had when I was a little girl that was way out in the country." And they did find out it was the very same house. So she said, "Let's move this house and make it as good as new." So they picked up the house and they put it on wheels and they pulled it out of the city. At first, the little house was a little upset. She didn't know what was happening. But after a while, she got used to it and liked rolling down the road behind the truck. And finally she saw a hill, and in the middle of a field, and apple trees were growing all around. "There," said the great-great-granddaughter, "that's just the place." "Yes, it is," said the little house to herself. The windows and shutters were fixed, and once again they painted her a lovely shade of pink. The little house smiled happily, 'cause now she could watch the sun and the moon and stars again. And spring and fall and winter and summer come and go. She was taken care of again, and she was very happy. The stars twinkled above her, the new moon was coming up, and all was quiet and peaceful in the country. The end.